Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. Niccolo Machiavelli. They tell you lying is about what people say that if you just listen closely enough to the words, you'll catch the contradiction, the slip-up, the telltale hesitation. That's a comforting lie, because the real deception happens long before a single word is uttered. It's built on a foundation of assumptions, expectations, and carefully constructed realities. We've been conditioned to believe that honesty is the default, that people are generally telling the truth. This naive trust is the very vulnerability that deceivers exploit. They don't just craft false statements, they meticulously build entire false worlds and invite you to live inside them. And once you're comfortable in their fabricated reality, the lies become almost invisible. The words themselves are just the final brushstrokes on a canvas of deception, a canvas they've primed with your own biases and desires. Learning to see through this requires more than just spotting a nervous tic or a linguistic anomaly. It demands a complete recalibration of how you perceive social interactions. It means understanding that every interaction is a performance, and that some performers are far more skilled and far more ruthless than others. It means recognizing that your own assumptions are the very tools they use against you. The game isn't about fact-checking individual statements. It's about understanding the architecture of the illusion itself. It's about seeing the strings, the pulleys, and the hidden mechanisms that make the whole charade work. And that's exactly what we're going to dissect. We're going to tear down the walls of the false realities and expose the manipulative architecture underneath. Because once you understand how the illusion is built, it loses its power. The mind of a deceiver isn't a blank slate waiting to be filled with falsehoods. It's a complex ecosystem of motivations, anxieties, and strategic calculations. To understand deception, you have to understand the psychological needs that drive it. Fear is often at the root. Fear of consequences, fear of judgment, fear of losing something valuable. The lie becomes a shield, a desperate attempt to protect oneself from perceived threats, but it's rarely a simple act of self-preservation. Deception often serves a more ambitious purpose: the acquisition of power. Power over resources, power over relationships, power over perception itself. The deceiver seeks to control the narrative, to dictate how others see them and the world around them. They understand that information is power, and they are willing to manipulate information to gain an advantage. This quest for power can manifest in subtle ways, from inflating one's accomplishments to outright fabrication of events. It's a constant striving to elevate oneself, often at the expense of others. Furthermore, many deceivers operate under a distorted moral code, or perhaps no moral code at all. They rationalize their actions, convincing themselves that the ends justify the means. They might see the world as a zero-sum game, where their gain is necessarily someone else's loss. This allows them to justify exploitation, manipulation, and even outright cruelty. They compartmentalize their behavior, separating their deceptive acts from their self-image. They may see themselves as good people, even while engaging in harmful behavior. This cognitive dissonance is a crucial element of deception. It allows them to maintain a sense of self-worth while simultaneously betraying the trust of others. The ability to rationalize immoral behavior is often a sign of a highly skilled manipulator. They can convince themselves, and sometimes others, that their actions are justified, even when they are clearly unethical. Consider the concept of Machiavellianism. This psychological trait describes individuals who are cunning, strategic, and willing to manipulate others to achieve their goals. High Machs are masters of deception. They are adept at reading people, identifying their weaknesses, and exploiting those weaknesses for their own benefit. They are often charming and persuasive, able to convince others to do their bidding without arousing suspicion. They are skilled at flattery, ingratiation, and other forms of social manipulation. They are also highly adaptable, able to adjust their behavior to suit the situation. They are chameleons, blending in with their surroundings and adapting to the expectations of others. This makes them difficult to detect, as they rarely reveal their true intentions. Moreover, the psychology of deception is intertwined with the dynamics of social interaction. We are constantly evaluating others, assessing their trustworthiness, and adjusting our behavior accordingly. Deceivers exploit this process by crafting carefully constructed personas that project an image of honesty and integrity. They understand that trust is a valuable commodity, and they are willing to invest time and effort in building that trust, even if it's based on a foundation of lies. They pay attention to their body language, their tone of voice, and their choice of words. They mimic the behavior of honest people, adopting their mannerisms and expressions. This makes it difficult to distinguish them from genuine individuals. Another key aspect of deception is the understanding of human psychology, particularly biases. Confirmation bias, for example, makes us more likely to accept information that confirms our existing beliefs, even if that information is false. Deceivers exploit this bias by tailoring their lies to align with our preconceived notions. They tell us what we want to hear, reinforcing our existing beliefs and making us more likely to trust them. This is why propaganda and misinformation are so effective. They prey on our existing biases, making us more susceptible to manipulation. Similarly, the halo effect causes us to assume that people who are attractive or successful are also honest and trustworthy. Deceivers often use their appearance and social status to create a positive impression, making it easier to gain our trust. In addition to these cognitive biases, deceivers also exploit our emotional vulnerabilities. They understand that emotions can cloud our judgment, making us more susceptible to manipulation. They might use guilt, fear, or pity to influence our decisions. They might create a sense of urgency, pressuring us to make a quick decision without thinking it through. They might appeal to our sense of loyalty or obligation, manipulating us into doing something we wouldn't normally do. Understanding these emotional manipulation techniques is crucial for protecting yourself from deception. You need to be aware of your own emotional triggers and learn to recognize when someone is trying to exploit them. Ultimately, the anatomy of deception lies in understanding the complex interplay of psychological motivations, cognitive biases, and social dynamics. It's about recognizing that every interaction is a potential battleground, where trust is both a valuable asset and a dangerous vulnerability. By understanding the strategies and tactics used by deceivers, you can learn to see through their illusions and protect yourself from their manipulations. It is about recognizing that lies are not simply isolated events, but often the product of deep psychological calculations. It's about identifying the root motivations, the hidden strategies, and the manipulation of human biases that enable deception to thrive. It's a game of psychological chess. To win, you must anticipate their moves before they happen. Consider this scenario: a seemingly harmless request from a colleague at work. Sarah, a team member known for her cheerful demeanor, approaches you with an urgent plea. She explains that she has a family emergency and needs to leave early, but a critical report is due by the end of the day. She asks if you could possibly finish it for her, emphasizing how much it would mean to her and how grateful she would be. Initially, your instinct might be to help. You value being a team player and you don't want to let your colleague down in a time of need. However, a closer examination of the situation reveals a more complex reality, a subtle layer of manipulation beneath the surface of a simple request. Sarah is aware that you are conscientious and dedicated to your work. She is deliberately playing on your sense of responsibility and your desire to be seen as a helpful colleague. She is leveraging your inherent inclination to assist those in need, using the family emergency as a compelling narrative to bypass your rational defenses. Furthermore, she frames the request as a personal favor, intensifying the pressure by implying that refusing would be a betrayal of friendship and teamwork. She knows that the emotional weight of letting her down in a crisis is a powerful motivator, potentially strong enough to override your own priorities and workload. Now, let's dissect the layers of deception embedded within this seemingly innocent interaction. Firstly, the family emergency itself might be a complete fabrication or a gross exaggeration of a minor inconvenience. It serves as a smokescreen, obscuring Sarah's true motives and preventing you from questioning the validity of her request. Even if the emergency is genuine, the timing and urgency could be strategically manufactured to create maximum pressure. Sarah might have known about the deadline for weeks, yet she waited until the last minute to seek assistance, ensuring that you have limited time to assess the situation and consider your options. Secondly, Sarah's display of gratitude and appreciation is a calculated tactic to reinforce your compliance. By showering you with praise and promises of future reciprocity, she creates a sense of obligation, making it more difficult for you to decline her request. This manipulation leverages the principle of reciprocity, the deeply ingrained human tendency to return favors, even when they are not explicitly requested. She's building credit with you, knowing that this perceived debt might make you more vulnerable to her influence in the future. The critical report itself could be part of the strategy. Sarah might be aware that you possess specific skills or knowledge that she lacks, making you the most suitable person to complete the task. She is exploiting your expertise to alleviate her own workload, while simultaneously positioning herself as the victim of unfortunate circumstances. She might also be subtly undermining your professional standing by allowing you to do the work while she takes the credit or avoids responsibility for any errors or omissions. The social dynamics at play in this scenario further complicate the situation. In a workplace environment, there is often a pressure to conform to social norms and expectations. Refusing to help a colleague in need can be perceived as selfish or uncooperative, potentially damaging your reputation and relationships within the team. Sarah is exploiting this social pressure, leveraging the fear of being ostracized or judged negatively to manipulate your decision. She understands that the potential social cost of refusing her request outweighs the personal cost of completing the report yourself. Furthermore, the power dynamics between you and Sarah may also influence the outcome. If Sarah holds a higher position in the company hierarchy or has a stronger social network within the team, you might feel even more compelled to comply with her request, fearing potential repercussions for refusing. She could subtly imply that your career advancement or job security depends on your willingness to be a team player, adding another layer of manipulation to the equation. In essence, Sarah's seemingly harmless request is a carefully orchestrated act of deception, designed to exploit your psychological vulnerabilities, social sensitivities, and professional aspirations. By understanding the underlying motives and strategies at play, you can recognize the manipulation and make a more informed decision about how to respond. It's about seeing beyond the surface narrative and discerning the hidden agenda. It is about maintaining a critical perspective and refusing to be swayed by emotional appeals or social pressures. The reason Sarah succeeds and why manipulation works so often is because the target, you, are operating under a flawed set of assumptions about human behavior. You believe that people are generally honest, that requests are made in good faith, and that social interactions are governed by a basic sense of fairness. These are comforting beliefs, essential for maintaining a sense of order and predictability in the world. However, they are also profound weaknesses, blind spots that can be exploited by those who operate without such constraints. The manipulator sees the world differently. They understand that people are driven by self-interest, that honesty is often a carefully constructed facade, and that fairness is a concept that can be easily bent to their advantage. They are not bound by the same moral codes or ethical considerations that constrain most people, and this freedom allows them to see opportunities where others see only obstacles. Sarah, in this scenario, is not simply asking for help. She is probing for weakness. She is testing the boundaries of your compliance, gauging your willingness to sacrifice your own time and energy for her benefit. She is assessing your level of assertiveness, your ability to say no without feeling guilty or anxious. Each interaction is a data point, informing her understanding of your psychological profile and allowing her to refine her manipulative strategies over time. The trap is sprung when you, acting on your ingrained beliefs about social harmony and reciprocity, agree to help. You may rationalize your decision by telling yourself that it's just a small favor, that you're being a good team player, or that you don't want to create conflict. But in doing so, you are surrendering control of the situation and empowering Sarah to exploit you further. You have signaled that you are willing to prioritize her needs over your own, that your boundaries are porous, and that you can be easily manipulated through appeals to your sense of duty or social obligation. This single act of compliance sets a precedent, making it more likely that you will be targeted again in the future. Sarah now knows that you are a reliable resource, a soft target for her manipulative tactics. The weak fail because they underestimate the ruthlessness and cunning of the manipulator. They assume that everyone operates according to the same rules, that honesty and fairness are universally valued. They fail to recognize that some people are willing to lie, cheat, and exploit others to get what they want. They are blinded by their own good intentions, unable to comprehend the depths of human depravity. Furthermore, the weak often lack the self-awareness and emotional intelligence necessary to recognize when they are being manipulated. They may feel uneasy or resentful, but they are unable to articulate the source of their discomfort or to identify the specific tactics being used against them. They may attribute their feelings to stress, fatigue, or some other external factor, rather than recognizing that they are being psychologically manipulated. This lack of awareness leaves them vulnerable to further exploitation, as they are unable to defend themselves against the manipulator's subtle but powerful influence. They are pawns in a game they don't even realize they are playing, their actions dictated by the manipulator's carefully crafted script. The weak also fail because they are afraid of conflict. They prioritize social harmony and avoid confrontation at all costs, even when it means sacrificing their own well-being. They are afraid of being seen as difficult, selfish, or uncooperative, and they will go to great lengths to avoid upsetting others. This fear of conflict makes them easy targets for manipulators, who understand that they can exploit their aversion to confrontation to get what they want. Sarah, for example, may subtly threaten to create conflict if you refuse her request, implying that you will be seen as a bad team player or that your relationship with her will be damaged. The weak, desperate to avoid this outcome, will often capitulate to her demands, even if it means sacrificing their own time and energy. In essence, the trap is set by the target's own internal weaknesses, their flawed assumptions about human nature, their lack of self-awareness, and their fear of conflict. The manipulator simply exploits these weaknesses, turning them into levers to control the target's behavior. To avoid falling into this trap, you must challenge your own assumptions, cultivate self-awareness, and overcome your fear of conflict. You must learn to recognize the signs of manipulation and to assert your boundaries with confidence and clarity. Only then can you break free from the manipulator's control and reclaim your own power. You must understand that not everyone has your best interests at heart, and that sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is to say no. You are not obligated to sacrifice your own well-being for the sake of others, especially when those others are attempting to exploit you. Your time, energy, and resources are valuable, and you have the right to protect them from those who would seek to take advantage of you. It's about recognizing the game, the unspoken rules, and the hidden agendas that drive social interactions. It's about understanding that every request, every interaction, is a potential power play, and that you must be prepared to defend yourself against those who would seek to manipulate you. The Machiavellian approach to deception views human interaction as a strategic game, a perpetual negotiation of power and influence. It's a perspective stripped of naive idealism, recognizing that individuals often act in their own self-interest, sometimes at the expense of others. The master deceiver understands this fundamental truth and uses it to their advantage. They are not necessarily driven by malice, but by a pragmatic desire to achieve their goals, whatever those goals may be. To them, honesty and integrity are simply tools, to be employed when they serve their purposes and discarded when they do not. This is not about being inherently evil. It's about recognizing the reality of human behavior and leveraging it to gain an edge. They study human psychology, identifying common vulnerabilities, insecurities, and desires, and then craft their deceptions to exploit those weaknesses. They are skilled at reading people, discerning their unspoken needs and fears, and using this knowledge to manipulate their emotions and actions. They understand that people are often driven by irrational impulses, and that logic and reason are not always the deciding factors in their decision-making process. The Machiavellian strategist sees the world as a chessboard, with each person a piece to be moved and manipulated to achieve a desired outcome. They plan their moves carefully, anticipating their opponent's reactions and developing contingency plans to counter any resistance. They are patient, methodical, and relentless in their pursuit of their goals. They are not afraid to use any means necessary to achieve their objectives, as long as they believe that the ends justify the means. This might involve lying, deceiving, or even betraying others, but they see these actions as simply necessary steps in the game. The Machiavellian approach also emphasizes the importance of maintaining a facade of respectability and trustworthiness. The most effective deceivers are those who appear to be honest and sincere. They cultivate an image of integrity, building trust with their targets so that they are more likely to be believed. They are masters of disguise, able to seamlessly blend into any social environment and adapt their behavior to suit the situation. They understand that people are more likely to trust those who are similar to them, so they often mimic the behavior and beliefs of their targets to establish rapport. They are also adept at using flattery and charm to disarm their targets and lower their defenses. They know that people are often susceptible to compliments, and that a well-placed word of praise can be enough to cloud their judgment. The Machiavellian strategy also requires a deep understanding of social dynamics and power structures. The master deceiver knows how to navigate complex social networks, identifying key influencers and decision-makers. They are skilled at building alliances and manipulating relationships to their advantage. They understand that power is often derived from information, so they are constantly seeking to gather intelligence about their targets and their environment. They are also adept at controlling the flow of information, withholding crucial details or spreading misinformation to achieve their desired outcome. A key aspect of this approach is the willingness to act decisively and ruthlessly when necessary. The Machiavellian strategist does not hesitate to eliminate any obstacles that stand in their way, whether those obstacles are people, ideas, or institutions. They are not sentimental or compassionate, and they are willing to make difficult choices in order to achieve their goals. They understand that power is often fleeting, and that it must be constantly defended and reinforced. Therefore, they are always vigilant, watching for any signs of betrayal or rebellion, and they are quick to crush any opposition that arises. Ultimately, the Machiavellian approach to deception is a cynical and pragmatic view of human nature. It recognizes that people are often driven by self-interest, and that they are willing to use deception to achieve their goals. To defend yourself against this approach, you must be aware of its principles and be vigilant in your interactions with others. You must learn to recognize the signs of manipulation and to assert your boundaries with confidence and clarity. You must also cultivate a healthy skepticism and avoid being too trusting of others, especially those who seem too good to be true. It's about recognizing that not everyone has your best interests at heart, and that you must protect yourself from those who would seek to exploit you. Consider the ancient Roman Empire, a masterclass in the art of deception on a grand scale. Their rise to power wasn't solely built on military might. It was interwoven with intricate webs of political maneuvering, propaganda, and strategic misinformation. Think of the Punic Wars against Carthage. While Rome certainly possessed superior military strength in the long run, their initial disadvantages forced them to employ cunning tactics beyond brute force. They exploited internal divisions within the Carthaginian Empire, spreading rumors and sowing discord amongst their allies to weaken their opposition from within. This wasn't just about winning battles. It was about controlling the narrative, shaping public opinion both at home and abroad. They painted Carthage as a barbaric threat to Roman civilization, a necessary enemy to rally their citizens and justify their expansionist ambitions. This carefully constructed image, often divorced from reality, served as a potent weapon in their arsenal. They manipulated alliances, making promises they didn't intend to keep, and breaking treaties when it suited their strategic advantage. The concept of Roman peace, Pax Romana, was often achieved through brutal subjugation masked by the rhetoric of bringing order and prosperity to conquered lands. Their propaganda machine was incredibly effective at rebranding conquest as liberation and exploitation as benevolent rule. This ability to control the perception of their actions was paramount to maintaining their dominance for centuries. They understood that power resided not just in military strength, but in the ability to define reality for others. The Roman legal system, while groundbreaking in many respects, was also strategically employed to legitimize their power structures. Laws were crafted and interpreted to favor the interests of the ruling elite, ensuring their continued control and suppressing dissent. The legal framework itself became a tool for deception, masking inequalities and justifying the exploitation of conquered populations. Even the gladiatorial games, often seen as mere entertainment, served a crucial purpose in controlling the populace. By providing a spectacle of violence and vicarious thrills, the Roman emperors diverted attention from the underlying social and economic problems, keeping the masses pacified and less likely to revolt. It was a carefully calculated strategy of distraction, utilizing entertainment as a means of social control. The architecture of Rome itself was a form of propaganda. The massive Colosseum, the imposing aqueducts, the grand public baths, all served as visual reminders of Roman power and technological prowess. These structures were designed to awe and intimidate, reinforcing the perception of Roman superiority and discouraging any thoughts of resistance. They were physical manifestations of the Roman narrative, constantly reminding citizens and visitors alike of the empire's strength and enduring legacy. Military strategy itself was rife with deception. Roman generals often employed elaborate feints and ambushes to outmaneuver their enemies. They understood the importance of psychological warfare, spreading rumors to demoralize enemy troops and creating false impressions of their own strength and intentions. They were masters of misdirection, constantly seeking to gain an advantage through cunning and deception. The Roman intelligence network was also crucial to their success. They maintained a vast network of spies and informants who gathered intelligence on their enemies, both within and outside their borders. This intelligence was used to anticipate threats, identify weaknesses, and plan strategic operations. The ability to gather and analyze information was a key factor in their ability to maintain their dominance for so long. Consider Julius Caesar's campaigns in Gaul. While he undoubtedly possessed military genius, his success was also due in part to his ability to exploit divisions among the Gallic tribes. He played them off against each other, forming alliances with some and turning them against others, effectively weakening their collective resistance to Roman rule. This divide-and-conquer strategy was a hallmark of Roman expansion, and it relied heavily on deception and manipulation. The Roman approach to diplomacy was also characterized by a certain degree of cynicism. They often used treaties and alliances as temporary expedients, breaking them when it suited their interests. They were masters of double-dealing, making promises they didn't intend to keep and using deception to gain an advantage in negotiations. Their word was not always their bond, and they were willing to sacrifice their reputation for the sake of strategic advantage. The Roman Empire, in essence, was a complex and multifaceted entity that relied on deception as a key tool for maintaining its power. From political maneuvering to military strategy to propaganda and social control, deception was woven into the very fabric of Roman society. Understanding the Roman approach to deception provides valuable insights into the dynamics of power and the importance of vigilance in the face of manipulation. The lessons learned from the rise and fall of the Roman Empire remain relevant today, as individuals and organizations continue to use deception to achieve their goals. Deception, at its core, isn't just about telling lies. It's a calculated assault on another person's perception of reality. To truly grasp the anatomy of deception, we must dissect the psychological mechanisms that make it so effective. Consider the human tendency towards cognitive biases. We are all prone to mental shortcuts, assumptions, and ingrained patterns of thinking that can be exploited by a skilled deceiver. Confirmation bias, for example, leads us to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs, making us more susceptible to accepting a lie that aligns with our worldview. Similarly, the availability heuristic causes us to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled, often due to their vividness or emotional impact. A deceiver can leverage this by presenting fabricated evidence or exaggerated anecdotes that tap into our fears or desires, making their lies seem more plausible. Our inherent trust in authority figures and social norms also plays a crucial role. We are conditioned to believe those in positions of power and to conform to the expectations of our social groups. A deceiver can exploit this by assuming a position of authority or by appealing to popular opinion, making their lies more readily accepted by those who are inclined to trust them. The emotional state of the target also greatly impacts their susceptibility to deception. When we are feeling stressed, anxious, or vulnerable, our cognitive resources are depleted, making us less able to critically evaluate information.